It's an image etched into the American identity, a ritual, a convenience, a comfort. It's the quick lunch on a busy Tuesday, the celebratory meal after a Little League win, the reliable companion on a cross-country road trip. It's the familiar glow of the golden arches, the promise of something fast, consistent, and undeniably satisfying. This is the kingdom of the fast food icon, the cheeseburger, the French fries, the fried chicken, the pizza, the milkshake. These aren't just foods. They are cultural touchstones, engineered to perfection. They are designed to hit what food scientists call the bliss point, that perfect, irresistible combination of salt, sugar, and fat that lights up the pleasure centers of our brain, telling us, in no uncertain terms, to take another bite. The experience is a symphony of sensations. The soft, yielding bun, the savory, umami-rich patty, the sharp tang of the pickle, the cool crunch of the lettuce, all brought together by the creamy, salty melt of the cheese. It's followed by the perfect counterpoint, the crisp exterior and fluffy interior of a French fry, a delivery vehicle for salt and fat that is second to none. The entire experience is washed down with the cold, sweet, carbonated rush of a soda, cleansing the palate, and paradoxically making you ready for the next savory bite. We know, on some level, that it isn't health food. We hear the whispers, the warnings, but the immediate reward is so powerful, the convenience so absolute, that it's easy to push those concerns aside. We tell ourselves, just this once, or I've had a long day, I deserve this. But what if we were to pull back the curtain? What if we could follow that single, seemingly harmless meal on its journey through our bodies, not with judgment, but with scientific curiosity? What happens at a microscopic biological level when these icons of American cuisine become a regular part of our diet? This isn't a story about guilt. It's a story about biology. It's the story of what we are truly consuming and the profound, silent conversation it has with ourselves, our organs, and our future. Let's begin with the most fundamental currency of energy, the calorie. We see the numbers posted on the menu boards, often in small print, easy to ignore. A single cheeseburger can range from 300 to over 1,000 calories. A large order of fries adds another 500. A large soda, another 300. Suddenly, a single meal, consumed in 15 minutes, has delivered 1,800 calories. For many adults, that represents nearly the entire recommended energy intake for a 24-hour period. To put this into perspective, imagine that energy as physical currency. You are given a budget of $2,000 to last an entire day. This single fast food transaction has just cost you $1,800 before lunchtime has even ended. You are left with a mere $200 to fuel the rest of your afternoon, your evening, your body's essential repairs while you sleep. The math simply doesn't work. But what is a calorie really? It's a unit of heat, a measure of the energy required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. In our bodies, it's the fuel that powers every single action, the beating of our heart, the firing of our neurons, the contraction of our muscles, the synthesis of new cells. Our bodies are incredibly efficient at managing this energy. When we consume precisely what we need, the system runs smoothly. But the modern fast food meal isn't a measured dose of fuel. It's a flood. It's a deluge of energy that overwhelms the intricate machinery of our metabolism. When this caloric tsunami hits, the body has a clear, evolutionarily ingrained protocol. First, it uses what it needs for immediate energy. But after a meal of 1,800 calories, there is a massive surplus. The body, designed for eras of scarcity, not abundance, sees this surplus as a gift. It thinks, I don't know when the next meal is coming, so I must store this precious energy for later. Its preferred method of storage is fat. The excess energy from carbohydrates, proteins, and fats is shuttled to the liver. There, through a process called de novo lipogenesis, it is converted into triglycerides, the primary form of fat stored in the body. These triglycerides are packaged into transport vehicles called very low-density lipoproteins, or VLDLs, and shipped out into the bloodstream. Their destination? Adipose tissue, our fat cells.
These fat cells are remarkable. They are designed to expand, like tiny balloons, to accommodate this stored energy. When we consistently consume more calories than we burn, these cells swell. When they reach their capacity, the body can even create new fat cells to handle the overflow. This is the biological process of weight gain. It's not a moral failing. It's a survival mechanism gone haywire in an environment of unprecedented caloric abundance. But not all fat storage is created equal. There is subcutaneous fat, the layer just beneath our skin that we can pinch. While not ideal in excess, it is less metabolically dangerous than its counterpart, visceral fat. Visceral fat is the deep internal fat that wraps around our vital organs, the liver, the pancreas, the intestines. You can't see it or touch it, but it is a hotbed of metabolic chaos. Unlike subcutaneous fat, visceral fat is highly active. It acts like an endocrine organ in its own right, pumping out a cocktail of inflammatory substances called cytokines and other hormones that disrupt normal bodily functions. These inflammatory signals travel throughout the body, contributing to a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation, a smoldering fire that is now understood to be at the root of nearly every major chronic disease, from heart disease to diabetes to Alzheimer's. That single high-calorie meal, repeated over time, doesn't just add inches to the waistline. It cultivates an internal environment of dysfunction. It lays the biological groundwork for disease, one calorie-dense bite at a time. The initial pleasure on the tongue gives way to a silent cellular burden that the body must struggle to manage day after day. The caloric density of these foods is the first, and perhaps most obvious, part of their hidden cost. But it is only the beginning of the story. We must now look closer at the very molecules that make up this meal. Let's dissect the fats. Fat is not inherently evil. It is essential for life. It forms our cell membranes, insulates our organs, and is vital for absorbing certain vitamins and producing hormones. But, like so many things in nutrition, the type of fat matters immensely. The fats that dominate the fast food landscape are a 1-2 punch to our cardiovascular system: saturated fat and their far more sinister cousins, artificial trans fats. Saturated fat, found in abundance in the ground beef, the cheese, and the oils used for frying, is characterized by its molecular structure. Every carbon atom in its fatty acid chain is saturated with hydrogen atoms, making the chain straight and rigid. This rigidity allows the fat molecules to pack tightly together, which is why they are solid at room temperature. Think of butter or the solid fat in meat. When we consume a meal rich in saturated fat, it is broken down and absorbed into the bloodstream. To transport fats and cholesterol through our watery blood, the body packages them into particles called lipoproteins. There are two famous players in this drama: low-density lipoprotein, or LDL, and high-density lipoprotein, or HDL. Think of LDL as the delivery truck. Its job is to transport cholesterol from the liver to cells throughout the body. Cholesterol is essential for building and repairing cells, so this is a vital function. HDL, on the other hand, is the garbage truck. It scavenges excess cholesterol from the arteries and tissues and brings it back to the liver for disposal. A healthy balance between LDL and HDL is crucial for cardiovascular health. A diet high in saturated fat throws this system out of balance. It signals the liver to produce more LDL cholesterol, flooding the bloodstream with these delivery trucks. Simultaneously, it can reduce the number and efficiency of LDL receptors on the cells, which are supposed to pull the LDL out of circulation. The result is a traffic jam. There are too many delivery trucks on the arterial highway and not enough loading docks to receive them. This leads to high levels of LDL cholesterol circulating in the blood, the infamous bad cholesterol. Now let's introduce the true villain of the fat world: artificial trans fat. Created through an industrial process called hydrogenation, where hydrogen is forced into vegetable oil to make it solid and more shelf-stable, trans fats were a miracle for food manufacturers. They created the perfect texture for baked goods and were ideal for deep frying, as the oil could be used over and over again. For decades, they were hidden in plain sight, in everything from French fries to cookies to microwave popcorn. From a biological perspective, trans fats are a catastrophe. Their unique twisted molecular structure is foreign to the human body. When consumed, they wreak havoc on our cholesterol levels in a way that no other fat can. Like saturated fats, they dramatically increase the production of harmful LDL cholesterol. But they don't stop there. They also actively decrease our levels of protective HDL cholesterol. They are taking the garbage trucks off the road at the exact same time they are flooding the highways with more delivery trucks. It is the perfect storm for arterial disease. So, what happens with all this excess LDL circulating in our blood? This is where the story turns from biochemistry to pathology. Our arteries are not inert pipes, they are dynamic, living tissues. The inner lining of an artery is a delicate single-cell layer called the endothelium. It is supposed to be smooth and slick, allowing blood to flow freely. High levels of LDL cholesterol, combined with other stressors like high blood pressure and inflammation, which as we'll see are also products of this meal, can damage this delicate lining. Small microscopic injuries form. This is where the trouble begins. LDL particles can then penetrate this damaged endothelium and become trapped in the artery wall. Once there, they undergo a chemical change called oxidation. This oxidized LDL is recognized by the body's immune system as a foreign invader. The alarm bells go off, and the body mounts an inflammatory response. It sends in immune cells called macrophages to clean up the mess. The macrophages are voracious. They begin to engulf the oxidized LDL particles, but they don't know when to stop. They consume so much LDL that they become bloated and dysfunctional, transforming into what scientists call foam cells because of their frothy appearance under a microscope. These foam cells are the building blocks of plaque. They accumulate within the artery wall, forming a fatty streak. This is the very first stage of a disease called atherosclerosis. It can begin in childhood and progress silently, without any symptoms, for decades. As the process continues, the body tries to heal the area by forming a fibrous cap over the growing collection of foam cells, dead cells, and other debris. This collection is the plaque. Over time, calcium deposits can form within the plaque, making it hard and brittle.
This plaque grows, narrowing the artery and restricting blood flow. If this happens in the coronary arteries that feed the heart, it can cause chest pain or angina during exertion. If it happens in the carotid arteries leading to the brain, it can affect cognitive function. But the real danger often lies in the plaque's stability. The inflammatory processes driven by a poor diet can make the plaque unstable and fragile. The fibrous cap can rupture or crack. When this happens, the body perceives it as an injury and initiates its emergency clotting protocol. It rushes platelets and clotting factors to the site to form a blood clot or thrombus to seal the rupture. This blood clot is the final catastrophic event. It can rapidly grow large enough to completely block the already narrowed artery. If this happens in a coronary artery, it cuts off the supply of oxygen and nutrients to a section of the heart muscle. The heart muscle begins to die. This is a heart attack. If the clot forms in an artery leading to the brain, or breaks off and travels there, it blocks blood flow to a part of the brain. Brain cells, deprived of oxygen, begin to die within minutes. This is an ischemic stroke. This entire devastating cascade, from a damaged endothelium to a fatal blood clot, is fueled directly by the types of fats found in that cheeseburger and fries. Every meal rich in saturated and trans fats is another contribution to the silent, slow-motion construction of plaque within the arteries. It is a long-term payment plan for a catastrophic health event, with each bite serving as an installment. Now, let us turn our attention to another ingredient, one used with reckless abandon in fast food. Sodium. Salt, the element that makes flavors pop, that preserves food, and that our bodies need in small amounts to function. Sodium is a critical electrolyte, essential for nerve impulses, muscle contractions, and fluid balance. Our bodies are finely tuned to maintain a precise concentration of sodium in our blood. The problem is not sodium itself, but its overwhelming quantity in processed foods. The American Heart Association recommends that adults consume no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day, with an ideal limit of 1,500 milligrams for most people.
A single fast food meal can obliterate these guidelines. A burger can have 1,000 milligrams. The large fries, another 400 milligrams. The sauces, the pickles, they all add up. It's not uncommon for one meal to deliver over 3,000 milligrams of sodium. What happens when this sodium tidal wave hits our system? The body immediately senses that the sodium concentration in the bloodstream is dangerously high. Its primary defense mechanism is dilution. To restore balance, it holds on to water. The kidneys, which are the master regulators of fluid and sodium, receive hormonal signals to dramatically reduce the amount of water they excrete as urine. This retained water increases the total volume of blood circulating through our cardiovascular system. Imagine a garden hose. If you force more water through it, the pressure inside the hose goes up. The same thing happens in our blood vessels. The increased blood volume pushes harder against the walls of our arteries, leading to a rise in blood pressure. This is hypertension. For many people, this rise in blood pressure is temporary. The body eventually flushes out the excess sodium and water, and the pressure returns to normal. But when a high sodium diet is the norm, not the exception, the body is in a constant state of high volume and high pressure. The hypertension becomes chronic. Living with chronic high blood pressure is like running an engine in the red zone, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The relentless force of the blood pounding against the artery walls causes physical damage to the delicate endothelium, accelerating the process of atherosclerosis we just discussed. It creates more sites for LDL cholesterol to penetrate and for plaque to form. The heart also suffers immensely. It is a muscle, and forcing it to pump blood against high resistance is like forcing you to lift a heavy weight thousands of times a day. To cope with this increased workload, the heart muscle thickens and enlarges, a condition called left ventricular hypertrophy. While a bigger muscle might sound good, in the heart it is a sign of pathology. The thickened muscle becomes stiff and less efficient. It requires more oxygen, but can struggle to receive it, increasing the risk of heart attack and eventually leading to heart failure. The kidneys, forced to work overtime to manage the constant sodium load, can become damaged over time, leading to chronic kidney disease. And the brain is at extreme risk. Chronic high blood pressure is the single biggest risk factor for stroke. It weakens the walls of blood vessels in the brain, making them more likely to rupture, a hemorrhagic stroke, or to be blocked by clots, an ischemic stroke. The sodium in that fast food meal is not just a flavor enhancer. It is a primary driver of a silent, deadly condition that damages nearly every major organ system in our body. It turns our own circulatory system into a high-pressure, destructive force working from the inside out. And so we arrive at the third pillar of the fast food trifecta: sugar and refined carbohydrates. This is the world of the fluffy white bun, the crispy breading on the chicken, the ketchup, and obviously, the colossal cup of soda sitting next to the meal. Our bodies run on glucose, a simple sugar. It's the preferred fuel for our cells, especially our brain. When we eat carbohydrates, our digestive system breaks them down into glucose, which then enters the bloodstream. The problem with the carbohydrates in a fast food meal is their quality and speed. They are almost exclusively refined carbohydrates. The flour in the bun has been stripped of its fiber and nutrients. The sugar in the soda is pure liquid energy with no nutritional cofactors. When we consume these foods, they are digested with lightning speed. This results in a massive, rapid surge of glucose into the bloodstream. This is the sugar spike. The body perceives this spike as an emergency. High levels of glucose in the blood are toxic. They can damage blood vessels and nerves. To handle this crisis, the pancreas springs into action. It releases a powerful hormone called insulin.
Insulin is the key that unlocks our cells, allowing them to take in glucose from the blood to be used for energy. As insulin does its job, cells throughout the body, in our muscles, liver, and fat, begin to absorb the glucose, and the blood sugar level starts to fall. But the pancreas, faced with such a dramatic glucose spike, often overreacts. It releases a huge wave of insulin, which works too well. It drives blood sugar levels down not just to normal, but often below normal. This is the sugar crash, or reactive hypoglycemia. This is the feeling of fatigue, brain fog, irritability, and shakiness that can hit an hour or two after a fast food meal. And what does the brain do when it senses this low blood sugar? It triggers intense cravings, not for broccoli or grilled chicken, but for more of the same fast-acting sugar and refined carbs that caused the problem in the first place. This creates a powerful, vicious cycle, a spike, followed by a crash, followed by a craving, leading to another spike. It's a physiological roller coaster that wreaks havoc on our energy levels, our mood, and our hormones. But the long-term consequences are far more dire. When the pancreas is forced to pump out massive amounts of insulin, day after day, year after year, our cells begin to adapt. They become desensitized to insulin's signal. They start to ignore the key trying to unlock them. This is called insulin resistance. As insulin resistance develops, the pancreas has to work even harder, producing even more insulin to get the same job done. For a while, it can keep up. Blood sugar levels might remain in the normal range, but underneath the surface, insulin levels are sky high. This is a state of silent dysfunction. Eventually, the beta cells in the pancreas that produce insulin can become exhausted. They begin to wear out and die off. They can no longer produce enough insulin to overcome the cell's resistance. At this point, the system fails. Glucose can no longer get into the cells effectively, so it begins to accumulate in the bloodstream. Blood sugar levels rise and stay high. This is the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is not a mild condition. It is a systemic disease that ravages the body. The high levels of glucose in the blood act like shards of glass, damaging the lining of blood vessels throughout the body. It dramatically accelerates atherosclerosis, leading to a huge increase in the risk of heart attack and stroke. It destroys the tiny blood vessels in the kidneys, leading to kidney failure and the need for dialysis. It damages the nerves, especially in the feet, leading to neuropathy, infections, and amputations. It destroys the blood vessels in the retina, leading to blindness. The soda in that meal deserves special mention. Most sodas are sweetened not with simple table sugar, but with high fructose corn syrup, HFCS. While glucose can be metabolized by nearly every cell in the body, fructose is processed almost exclusively by the liver. When the liver is inundated with a flood of fructose from a large soda, it becomes overwhelmed. It can't use it all for energy, so it begins converting the fructose into fat through that same process of de novo lipogenesis. This fat can build up in the liver cells, leading to a condition called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD. This disease, once rare, is now epidemic, mirroring the rise in sugar consumption. Over time, NAFLD can progress to a more serious inflammatory state called NASH, which can lead to cirrhosis, scarring of the liver, liver failure, and liver cancer. That sweet, bubbly drink is a direct toxin to the most important metabolic organ in our body. So we have a meal that is a caloric bomb, a vessel for artery-clogging fats, a carrier of blood pressure-raising sodium, and a trigger for a blood sugar and insulin roller coaster that paves the way for diabetes. But what is perhaps most insidious is not what this food contains, but what it lacks. It is a nutritional ghost. It provides an abundance of energy, but almost none of the essential building blocks the body needs to function, repair, and protect itself. Where is the fiber? Fiber, the indigestible part of plants, is critically important. It slows down the absorption of sugar, preventing the dramatic blood sugar spikes. It feeds the trillions of beneficial bacteria living in our gut, our microbiome. It adds bulk, making us feel full and satisfied with fewer calories. A typical fast food meal contains a negligible amount of fiber. Where are the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals that act like the spark plugs for all of our body's chemical reactions? Where is the vitamin C, a powerful antioxidant that protects our cells? Where is the potassium, which helps to counteract the effects of sodium and lower blood pressure? Where are the B vitamins, essential for energy metabolism? They are largely absent, stripped away during the refining and processing of the ingredients.
Where are the phytonutrients, the thousands of protective compounds found in colorful fruits and vegetables that act as antioxidants and anti-inflammatory agents? These compounds, like flavonoids and carotenoids, are our body's internal defense force against cellular damage. A fast food meal is a blank slate, devoid of this vibrant protective army. This creates a bizarre and dangerous paradox. It is possible to be simultaneously overfed and undernourished. You can be consuming thousands of calories a day and still have a body that is starving for the essential nutrients it needs to function properly. This nutritional void leaves the body vulnerable. Without antioxidants to quench them, cellular damaging free radicals run rampant. Without anti-inflammatory compounds, the low-grade inflammation sparked by the meal goes unchecked. The body is given all the materials to build disease: excess calories, bad fats, sodium, sugar, but none of the tools to build health.
Let's integrate these threads and look at the systemic impact. A fast food meal doesn't just challenge one organ system at a time. It launches a coordinated, multi-front assault on the body's equilibrium. The unifying theme is inflammation. Chronic, low-grade inflammation is not the acute inflammation you see with a cut, the redness, swelling, and pain that signals healing. It is a persistent, smoldering fire at the cellular level. That visceral fat we talked about, it's pumping out inflammatory cytokines. The high blood sugar, it creates advanced glycation end products, AGEs, compounds that are intensely inflammatory. The oxidized LDL in the artery walls, it triggers a massive inflammatory response. The unhealthy balance of fats disrupts the body's natural anti-inflammatory pathways. The lack of antioxidants from plants means there is nothing to counter this process. This systemic inflammation is the common soil from which the deadliest diseases of our time grow. It drives atherosclerosis in our arteries. It worsens insulin resistance in our cells. It is strongly linked to the development and progression of many types of cancer. It even affects our brain, contributing to neuroinflammation, which is now implicated in depression, anxiety, and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. Each fast food meal is like throwing gasoline on this smoldering fire. The impact on our brain is particularly profound. The brain is an energy-hungry organ, consuming about 20% of our daily calories. But it requires high-quality fuel. A diet rich in fast food has been shown to impair cognitive function, memory, and learning. The blood sugar roller coaster disrupts the steady supply of glucose the brain needs. The high levels of saturated and trans fats can damage the blood-brain barrier, a protective filter that controls what substances can enter the brain. Inflammation in the brain can kill neurons and impair the communication between them. Furthermore, these foods are engineered to hijack our brain's reward system. The combination of fat, sugar, and salt triggers a release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This is the same system activated by drugs of abuse. Over time, the brain can become desensitized to this dopamine hit, meaning it requires more and more of the stimulus, more fast food, to get the same feeling of pleasure. This is the neurobiological basis of food addiction. It explains why, even when we know the food is bad for us, the cravings can feel overpowering and uncontrollable. And what about our gut? The gut is home to a complex ecosystem of trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi known as the microbiome. This ecosystem is so important to our health that it is often referred to as a second brain or a forgotten organ. A healthy, diverse microbiome is essential for proper digestion, immune function, and even mental health. These beneficial microbes thrive on fiber and complex carbohydrates from plants. A fast food diet starves these beneficial microbes. It is a diet of refined flour, sugar, and processed fats with virtually no fiber. This shifts the balance of the gut ecosystem, allowing more harmful, inflammatory bacteria to flourish while the protective species die off. This imbalance, called dysbiosis, can lead to a leaky gut, where the lining of the intestines becomes more permeable.
This allows bacterial toxins to leak into the bloodstream, triggering a massive immune and inflammatory response throughout the body, further fueling the fire of chronic disease. The story we have told is a grim one. It is a journey from a moment of pleasure to a lifetime of potential pathology. From the caloric overload driving obesity, to the dangerous fats building plaque in our arteries, to the sodium forcing our blood pressure to dangerous heights, to the sugar paving the way for diabetes and the nutritional void that leaves our bodies defenseless, the case against the regular consumption of these fast food icons is overwhelming. It paints a picture of a food system that has become profoundly disconnected from our biological needs. We have taken food, which should be the source of our vitality and health, and engineered it into a highly palatable, incredibly convenient, and powerfully destructive force. But this knowledge should not be a source of despair. It should be a source of empowerment. Understanding the why behind the warnings gives us the power to make conscious, informed choices. It transforms the act of eating from a mindless habit into a deliberate act of self-care. This is not a call for perfection. The occasional burger and fries is not going to derail a lifetime of health. The human body is resilient and has a remarkable capacity for healing. The problem is not the occasional treat. It is the normalization of these foods as a dietary staple. It is the steady, daily drip of these metabolically disruptive ingredients that erodes our health over time. The path forward begins with small, deliberate shifts. It begins with recognizing these meals for what they are, not just food, but potent biological signals that have profound effects on our cellular machinery. It's about changing the question from, what do I want to eat right now, to how do I want to feel tomorrow, next week, and 10 years from now. It can start with simple substitutions, replacing the soda with water, opting for a side salad instead of fries, choosing grilled chicken over fried. Each of these small choices reduces the burden on the body. It can evolve into the practice of cooking more meals at home, where you have complete control over the ingredients, the types of fats, the amount of salt, the sources of carbohydrates. As you begin to nourish your body with whole, unprocessed foods, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, healthy fats, something remarkable happens. Your body begins to heal. The inflammation subsides. Insulin sensitivity improves. Blood pressure can normalize. The gut microbiome can be repopulated with beneficial bacteria. Even your palate changes. Our taste buds are adaptable. As you reduce your intake of the hyperpalatable processed foods, your sensitivity to salt and sugar returns. You start to appreciate the subtle sweetness of a fresh strawberry, the complex bitterness of dark leafy greens, the savory satisfaction of a well-seasoned piece of fish. The cravings for fast food can begin to fade, replaced by a genuine desire for foods that make you feel energetic, clear-headed, and alive. The convenience of the drive-thru is a powerful lure in our fast-paced world, but the true cost of that convenience is paid over decades in the currency of our health. It is paid in pharmacy bills and hospital visits. It is paid in lost energy, diminished vitality, and years of life compromised by chronic disease. By understanding the intricate, silent dance between this food and our biology, we reclaim our power. We are no longer passive consumers, but active participants in the creation of our own health. The choice, as always, rests with us. We can continue down the well-trodden path of convenience, accepting the long-term consequences as inevitable. Or we can choose a different path, a path of awareness, of intention, and of nourishment. A path that recognizes that the most powerful medicine, the most fundamental tool for a long and vibrant life, is waiting for us not in a pill bottle, but at the end of our fork.